New Zealanders will start to arrive at Wuhan's international airport in a few hours, preparing for their evacuation out of the city where the coronavirus outbreak began. An Air New Zealand flight with medical officials on board will leave Hong Kong just before midnight and will land in the Hubei province at about 2 a.m. Passengers will go through a thorough medical exam before boarding the plane and will be placed in isolation for 2 weeks on arrival. Ben Strang has more.
The flight is scheduled to leave Wuhan at 4 a.m. New Zealand time and will take about 12 hours to make the journey to Auckland. The Director General of Health, Dr. Ashley Bloomfield, says the latest figures suggest 263 people will be evacuated out of Wuhan.
The majority of those are New Zealand citizens or permanent residents. There are also a number of Australian citizens and also some foreign nationals, predominantly from Pacific Island countries.
The Ministry of Health didn't have the exact numbers of New Zealand citizens or permanent residents who would be on the flight, but suggested it was at least double that of earlier predictions of 70. But the status of Chinese passport holders who are permanent residents is complicated. The only Chinese passport holders allowed on the flight will be residents that are accompanied by immediate family, such as children or a spouse, who are on a New Zealand passport. Any other permanent resident with a Chinese passport has been denied a ticket, even if they have a family here in New Zealand. Auckland woman Lily Gao, who's stuck in Wuhan with her 2-year-old daughter Elise, says she's saying goodbye to family members and is all packed to go.
I'm very excited to go back to New Zealand because now in China, coronavirus case is increasing daily, almost 1,000 or 2,000. Also, a lot of people, they get a symptom, but they are not confirmed yet. Maybe the actual figure is more than that.
Another Auckland woman, Victoria Chen, is in Tianmen, a city in Hubei province, which is about 2 hours' drive from Wuhan. Though she and her 1-year-old son are allowed to go on the evacuation plane, she's still waiting for her travel permit to Wuhan.
Still would need more specification, like the driver's information, the plate number, and the passengers and the vehicle, and all the passport information. And then the embassy notify the Chinese authority and pass on to our local authority. So it will take a while.
She's hopeful that she'll get the permit in time. For Lily Gao, Victoria Chen and the other passengers, the first test at the airport will be to pass a medical before boarding the flight from Wuhan. During the flight, passengers will be monitored by a medical team from Air New Zealand and St John. On arrival at Auckland Airport tomorrow afternoon, Dr Bloomfield says the passengers will be welcomed through a dedicated gate at the international terminal.
We expect once the passengers have all been processed through the usual customs and biosecurity clearances, there will be a further health assessment, and then they will be bused to Whangaparoa, to the military camp there, where you're aware they are going to be housed and looked after for the next 14 days, or for the 14 days after they arrive.
Dr Bloomfield says the passengers will receive medical checkups every day that they're in isolation, and there would be no risk to people living in surrounding areas. But it was unclear what would happen to the Australian citizens on the flight from Wuhan, with the ministry still in talks with the Australian government over their fate. For citizens or permanent residents coming into the country from other areas of mainland China, Dr Bloomfield says the messaging remains the same.
Remembering that it's anyone coming in who might have been in China, mainland China, on their way back to New Zealand, even if they've transited through another country. All those people are being met, and you'll be aware that Customs is now manually processing everybody through, so the smart gates aren't operating, so they can collect those details.
Krista McJarrow-Keller is a university student in China and returned home to New Zealand last week before the government implemented a travel ban and enhanced measures at the border. She says she was stunned at how easy it was to enter.
When I arrived in New Zealand, I was kind of shocked because I kind of waltzed through Wellington Airport, and they didn't even ask me if I had any symptoms or anything. So maybe I came through before people really started to get worried about it. But I was worried about it at that point because, as far as I was concerned, there was still a chance that I could have been carrying it. So we didn't really know what to do. My parents thought I should be in quarantine, or like a self-imposed quarantine, to stay at home. And so we rang public health. And at that point, and they just said, oh, well, if you're not showing any symptoms, it should be fine.
Despite the advice, Ms McJarrow Keller has gone into isolation, and even her father has been told he can work from home until the 14-day period is over. Dr Bloomfield says the ministry has information on anyone who had visited China recently, but people who entered the country before the precautions were in place are safe. The ministry still isn't planning on checking on people who should be isolating themselves at home for the next 2 weeks, but is considering offering up food packages or other support for people who need the help while stuck at home. For Checkpoint, Ben Strang.